Camera's rolling.
Camera's rolling. You ready?
Camera's rolling. Awesome. All right, focus. We're in focus.
We're in focus.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Today we're talking about the amazing true story of how Chiasmus was discovered in the Book of Mormon. We're even going to tell you what Chiasmus is. A lot of people have heard of the Book of Mormon, but not many people can tell you much about the actual book itself. One of the questions people who study the Book of Mormon deal with is whether it is an ancient book or a modern book. And this question isn't important to everyone who picks up a copy, but some people wonder if the materials in the book were originally written by several ancient people over the course of 1,000 years and then translated into English by Joseph Smith, or if the book is a modern composition written entirely in the early 19th century. Obviously, the question of the origin of the Book of Mormon will quickly deal with faith. This video isn't trying to prove the book to be true, or that Jesus is real or not real, or anything else that you just have to take on faith. However, there are many types of evidence that are helpful in scrutinizing the Book of Mormon. These evidences come from various academic disciplines, and some deal with historical, social, philosophical, or literary information, internal or external to the text of the Book of Mormon. One of the most interesting of those types of evidence comes from a style of language composition, the way words are constructed. The style was first discovered in the Book of Mormon by a 20-year-old full-time missionary in Germany in 1967. It's a good story. The style is called Chiasmus. So quickly to back up, if you haven't heard of Chiasmus, let me explain. If you lived in an ancient world and were writing a story and wanted people to understand what your main point was, you as a writer could guide the reader using Chiasmus. You state a series of points or words, so A, B, C, and then D. And then you repeat D and all the other points in reverse order, C, B, A. Now, that's not how we do it in English, but that's kind of the point. Chiasmus is a different and ancient style of writing, and it was used much more often in ancient biblical literature than in other styles of writing. Every 10th grade English teacher shows their students how to guide their readers with a 3-paragraph essay. If you want to share your ideas with someone, you write a topic sentence, and then a paragraph for each of your 3 points, and then a concluding paragraph. But this is what ancient documents look like. There are no paragraphs, there are no topic sentences, there is not even any punctuation, and there are certainly no Cliff's Notes. The chiastic style has the same ancient goal as a 3-paragraph essay style. An ancient writer would use an established writing format to guide their readers along and point them to the most important ideas and help them be able to remember them later. The main point, literally the turning point of a chiastic text, is emphasized in its central point. So that's Chiasmus. Here's a little background on who discovered it in the Book of Mormon. My dad, Jack Welch. Look at this guy. Would you believe that he is the president of the Junior Classical League in high school and has taken AP Latin? I know it's hard to believe just by looking at him, but that's where he got his start in studying ancient things. As a freshman in college at BYU in 1964, he lucked into classes with Hugh Nibley, Robert K. Thomas, Richard L. Anderson, and Truman G. Madsen, brilliant and well-trained pioneers in Mormon academic research and education. So then, as it just so happened, after Dad finished a couple semesters at BYU, he lucked into a semester abroad program at the University in Salzburg. He spent a semester reading academic German, learning where the libraries are, and how European universities work. After all that, he got called, of all places he could have been sent, to the South German mission, which is right next door to where his study abroad had been. After all these foundational pieces were set into place, he was sent to the city of Regensburg 1 year into his mission in Germany. Regensburg is an intensely Catholic city and an academic center. You can almost say it's the South Bend of Germany. Next door to the small building where the handful of Mormons in town would meet, there was a bulletin board for one of the local universities. Now, at European universities, anyone could walk by and read a posting of what that week's lectures would be about. And one day, Dad just happened to notice that the Priester Seminar was going to be holding a series of lectures on the New Testament on Friday mornings, which was what the missionaries called Diversion Day at the time. In bigger cities, where there were a lot of American missionaries, they'd been playing basketball on their free day, but in Regensburg, it was just the 2 of them, and Dad was able to convince his new companion that going to lectures on their free time was something that all German missionaries did. So Dad and his companion just kind of marched into this Catholic university lecture. It was a public lecture, and the missionaries didn't wear name tags in those days, and in the European system, you don't register for classes. And even if the professor had asked, Dad still had his student card from the university in Austria, which gave him permission to attend any classes at university in Germany as well. Although the announced topic was the New Testament in general, the first lecture was something very specific. The lecturer had just read a short book published in 1965 by a Catholic scholar, Paul Gechter, called The Literary Art in the Gospel of Matthew. Gechter had done some studying on how this ancient and often Jewish writing style had influenced the Gospel of Matthew. After the lecture, Dad walked over to the bookstore and was able to buy the paper Gechter had written. Dad initially had no thoughts about how this could apply to the Book of Mormon. Gechter's paper showed how there are individual chiastic passages in Matthew, some of which are pretty hard to decipher because all the King James translators didn't like the repetition and would sometimes find new ways to say things so the text wasn't repetitive. The paper also shows how the whole Gospel of Matthew is organized into 7 sections. If you understand these sections and the chiastic style of writing the book was composed in, Matthew suddenly makes a lot more sense. Now, Gechter wasn't the first person to write about chiasmus in the New Testament, but there was very little written about chiasmus in the Bible, even in the 1960s. So at first, Dad was just happy to understand the New Testament a little bit better. He thought, hey, maybe this will be something I can talk about with all the Catholics in Regensburg. But then, 10 days after the lecture, Dad woke up at 4 in the morning on August 16th, 1967, with a very clear set of words in his head. If it is evidence of Hebrew style in the New Testament, it must be evidence of Hebrew style in the Book of Mormon. So Dad got up at 4 in the morning, which is a pretty big miracle in of itself. He opened his Book of Mormon and started reading where he and his companion had finished studying the day before. He's in Mosiah chapter 4. He read through 2 pages, and then 2 words jumped out at him. Übertretung. Now, these 2 words aren't hard to spot since it's 11 letters long, and also since the German typesetting dropped them directly on top of each other. Now, this is terrible typesetting if you work in book publishing. It's called a stack. But it's a massive German word, and it couldn't go anywhere else. But here King Benjamin says that whosoever shall not take upon him the name of Christ must be called by some other name and is on the left hand of God. So remember the name that I give you, that should never be blotted out except it be through transgression. Take heed that you do not transgress, that the name not be blotted out of your heart. So remember and retain the name, that you're not on the left hand of God, and know the voice by which ye are called, and the name that he shall call you. Not only did the German typesetting make it easier to discover, but the German translation uses the exact same word twice, while the English translation is transgress and transgression. So there it was, an ancient linguistic writing style in the Book of Mormon. So 2 days later, Dad wrote home, I'm excited about a new discovery. Now at first, Dad didn't really know even if it was a new idea. Had Nibley or others already written about it? Did it date back to Isaiah or Jeremiah? Was it Egyptian? Was it Hebrew? He had no idea. All Dad knew was that he'd heard the New Testament lecture and read it in Gechter's paper. He wasn't able to study very much as a missionary, but Dad was able to send away for a copy of a book written in 1942 called Chiasmus in the New Testament, and he was able to meet Gechter in Austria on the way home from his mission in 1968. Gechter was pleased someone had taken his work seriously and learned something from it. He blessed him. He said, "Young man, I think you have a life's work." Gechter passed away shortly after. Not only all of that, but years later, looking at his old missionary appointment book, Dad realized that August 16th was the exact midpoint day of his 2-year missionary time in Germany. So Dad gets home from California and is already connected to some of the academics at BYU. He studied carefully the book about Chiasmus in the New Testament by Niels Lund, and his first night back in Utah, he went to pay a surprise visit to Hugh Nibley, his freshman Book of Mormon professor, and ends up doing a graduate thesis under Nibley. Dad published a landmark article in the University Journal BYU Studies in 1969, and then while he was studying at Oxford, he published a popular version of his discoveries in the church magazine The New Era in 1972. Since then, there's been a lot more study and papers and books, but that is how it was first discovered. So what does it mean? Like I said, Chiasmus isn't going to convince anyone against their will that Jesus is real or that Joseph Smith saw God. However, Chiasmus existing in the Book of Mormon is evidence that the book is an ancient one and not a 19th century one. Mark Twain famously said that the Book of Mormon was chloroform in print. He dismissed it, and I don't really mind his critique. Mark Twain loved the English language, and the fact that he finds the English composition of the Book of Mormon to be repetitive and boring makes a little more sense if the Book of Mormon wasn't originally written in English anyway. It's bad English because in that sense it's not English. The ancient and Hebraic writing style is some of the best evidence out there to suggest the Book of Mormon was indeed written in an ancient language and then translated into what we have today. And now you know the true story of how it was discovered, because one 20-year-old kid that decided to go to an extra lecture on the New Testament at a Catholic seminary in his free time.